They're up, they're down, they're over, and they're out. And Philadelphia and New Jersey football fans want to know why. Eagles, why? Hi, everybody. I'm Dave Bontempo. Welcome to Why Eagles, Why, your weekly blood pressure pill for the Philadelphia Eagles. We break our show up into 4 quarters plus overtime, so please remember to hit like and subscribe for future videos. Want to welcome in, as always, Bill Gelman, and say hello to David Danzis. Hi, David. David covers the Jets for us with all of our sites, and we've got an interesting overview with the Eagles playing the Jets this week. But before we get to David, Bill, here we go. Why Eagles? Why in our first quarter as we break the huddle? Were we sucked in? Yes, I plead guilty. When they were 5-6 last week, I said, here they are knocking on the door. Nah, they got beat by the Giants. How about you, Bill? Where are you in that whole process?
Last week, I said I had 1 foot in the playoff door because these next 2 weeks were going to tell me what kind of team this was. Because those Eagles-Giants games are always ugly. We forget about the miracle at the Meadowlands. It doesn't matter what season it is. These games are never pretty. And I had a little fear that that Eagles team would show up last Sunday, and sure enough, they did. It's almost like they forgot to get on the bus.
Well, and they may have also forgotten that I had a 4-team parlay. All that game needed was 37 points, and I would have hit a 4-teamer. Nobody apologized for that. David, you must have been amused by this, seeing all the Eagles fans and media hyped up about the team, and then you watched the game with the Giants. What were your observations during that game?
Yeah, listen, going into the week, all you heard was how the Eagles had the easiest remaining schedule in the NFL, and their playoff appearance looked all but assured. And they looked like a really uninspired team on Sunday against the Giants, who, quite frankly, gave them every opportunity to win that game. And yet the Eagles snatched defeat from the claws of victory, so to speak.
Yeah, I cannot believe some of the play calling that we saw in that game, Bill. And I don't know, you take your choice. Which Jalen Hurts blunder was your biggie in the first half? The interception when it was 3-0, or the theatrics near the goal line at the end of the first half?
I think the fact that they never went for a field goal. Get the 3 points. The Giants were only up 3-0, tied the game. But it's, my bigger issue wasn't Jalen Hurts so much. It's like his targets. What is Jalen Reagor doing on the field?
Dropping all the passes is what he was doing on the field.
In 2 years, what has he done for this team? He was a first-round pick. And I've seen absolutely nothing from him.
David, as you were watching that game, did you get this expectation that something crazy was going to happen at the end, or did you just feel from the body language that the Eagles were not going to do what it would take to beat the Giants?
For some reason, I kept holding my breath, waiting for the Eagles to remember how they've been winning the past few weeks, which is running the ball, right? Using the RPO and playing the Jalen Hurts strengths. And for some reason, Sirianni never did it. So I can't say I was expecting something crazy, because it just seemed like they were defeating themselves. I don't think the Giants beat them. I think the Eagles lost.
Yeah, a game that the Eagles refused to win. Well, everybody was, many people in their camp. So basically what happened for the Eagles last week is that you throw a party, you invite everybody over, and then you realize in the middle of the party you forgot to pay the electric bill. And that is what happened with that team, because, wait a minute, now Washington is the team occupying the final playoff spot at the moment. So that was a tough setback for the Eagles. And then they go back to the same stadium this week at MetLife Stadium, and we are going to examine the Eagles and the Jets in our second quarter. Why Eagles? Why? Second quarter. Bill, we go to you first because, as always, what is Gelman's gold?
Well, the gold this week really isn't gold. It's barely bronze. I'm going with the number 7. 7 because the Eagles only scored 7 points, which was a season low for them this year. And you're not going to beat anyone if you score 7 points in a game. 7 because that's the number of times Jalen Reagor was targeted in the game. If you look on Play NJ, there's actually a picture of him right near the goal line with a ball going right through his hands. I mean, his hands were so close to the ball. You're in the NFL. You got to catch those. And 7, because had the Eagles beaten the Giants on Sunday, they'd be looking at 7 wins this season. The Dallas Cowboys, who are leading the NFC East, currently have 7 wins. Now, we're back to will they make the playoffs? Probably not.
Well, it's funny. What they did last week really justified the terminology of why Eagles, why, because they got everybody so excited about the team again. Here we go. 2 wins up at MetLife Stadium. We'll be 7-6, already looking into September, December, and then it didn't happen. David, you know all about expectations and tortured feelings with the Jets and those nice stories you write for us about the tortured Jets fans. Now, what do you make of this team? I love Robert Saleh, by the way. I like his fiery attitude, and they did surpass their win total of last week against Houston. Now, you've been watching them all year. What are your thoughts about the Jets and watching them all year?
So the only consistent thing about bad teams is that they are consistently inconsistent, right?
Yep.
And that is the 2021 New York Jets in a nutshell. I completely agree with you. I think Robert Saleh is the right guy for the job. The problem is you never know what this team is going to be from week to week. They've had flashes of offensive brilliance and flashes of defensive brilliance, and they seem completely unable to tie it all together. So I have no idea, which gangrene is going to show up on Sunday at MetLife. Your guess is as good as mine.
Well, and to your point, they played Miami tough before just losing, and Miami is now won 4 straight and looks like a very good team at this point of the season. They've beaten Tennessee at home when Tennessee had Derrick Henry. They beat Cincinnati at home and blew up everybody's suicide pools. So they have come up big and played well against some very good teams. They do have Zach Wilson back now. I'm a little surprised that I thought Davis was going to make a bigger impact in recent weeks, the guy they picked up from Tennessee, and yet last week they won without him.
Yeah, he's been almost an enigma at this point in the season because he really hasn't made his presence known on the field at all. There was a game a couple of weeks back, he was targeted 4 or 5 times in the first half. He dropped 3 of them. And that's not what you expect from your big free agent acquisition in the offseason. And he just, part of it has to be growing pains with a rookie quarterback. Part of it's probably a new system. But so far, Corey Davis just hasn't really been the guy the Jets hoped he'd be. They've really been banking on, a rookie and Elijah Moore. And, Jamison Crowder, when he's on the field, is arguably the Jets' best player when he's available, which is not very often lately. So, again, it's one of those things. You never know what you're getting from this team. And I think it's probably the most frustrating thing about being a Jets fan is I just don't know how they're going to lose from week to week.
Yeah, well, and we talk about Davis. I'd seen him last year with Tennessee and in the preseason when Zach Wilson looked very comfortable with him. And they looked like they were going to be a tandem at the beginning of the season. So to your point, 1 week you think you'll get these from these guys, and then the next week something else. Now, Bill, how about the pressure on the Eagles now this week? Instead of here we go. Now, the Jets have no pressure on them this week. And for the Eagles, it's, well, you know what? We really screwed up if we don't come out and get a win this week. What about that mindset on this team going into this game?
I mean, it's so much went wrong last week against the Giants. You're going back to the scene of the crime, so to speak, because that's where they, all the interceptions and fumbles took place. On paper, they should win this game. The line is opened at around 7. It's around 6.5 right before we started recording. My problem, I'm going back to the same thing I seem to keep touching on. That's like a broken record. They got the running game going, which we were complaining about the first half of the season, but their passing game is almost non-existent. I mean, Jalen Hurts had a quarterback passing rating of 17.5 against the Giants. That's about as brutal as you can get. But I was looking at who caught the balls last week. Devonta Smith had 2 catches. Dallas Goedert, who's a reliable target, only caught the ball once for no yards. You got to get those guys involved in the game, because you can, if the running game's not clicking, which it was last week, but you need a run pass balance, and all season it seems to continually be a problem for this coaching staff to try and figure out what plays the call and how to close out games.
If I could just jump in, I mean, I could almost write your game plan for you, because Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots did it in week 2, and then they replicated it a few weeks later when they just absolutely throttled the Jets. Screen passes, RPOs are this team's kryptonite, and it's what Jalen Hurts and the Eagles offense, when it's running well, does almost as good as anybody in the National Football League. So Nick Sirianni's game plan is there for all to see, and it's in black and white, and it's as clear as day. It's just a matter of if he decides to follow it. The middle and the back end of that Jets defense is absolutely laughable. I mean, I think, Michigan would have put up 45 on them again this weekend, just like they did against Ohio State. I mean, that's how bad this defense is. So you guys should have no problem scoring. It's just a matter of, whether the Jets offense shows up, because they have a propensity to put up some big plays when given the opportunity. So that's really what it comes down to in my mind.
All right. We're going to look further at this game in the third quarter, maybe some adjustments, maybe some coaching philosophies. We'll hear David's view on how Robert Saleh has been all year for the Jets. That's going to be in our third quarter. Why Eagles? Why third quarter? Dave Bontempo, Bill Gelman, and we're so happy to be joined by David Danzis as we look at the Eagles and the Jets and the overview now surrounding these teams in the league. The DraftKings board shows Bill Belichick of the Patriots now the 3-1 favorite as coach of the year, deservedly so. We've been on these Patriots since the Dallas game. But let's talk about some coaching, Bill, and some philosophies. When you look at the Eagles, those 2 penalties to Herbig last week, based on this offense taking yards away from them, this team could not adjust from a holding penalty based on their offensive schemes. What do you think they do about that?
Yeah. When you look at it, the holding penalty that called back the Boston Scott touchdown, that made a big difference in this game. That touchdown doesn't get called back, the Eagles win this game. But all season, I feel like this coaching staff, because they're so young and don't really have head coaching or coordinator experience, I just feel there's a lot of games this season where they just don't know how to adjust in game. And it clearly showed on Sunday. So
when they had those penalties,
penalty,
they still have to be very deliberate. 2nd and 18, 2nd and 20.
Right. And I feel like Sirianni has adjusted a little bit because they won 2 straight. So he's learning. But at the same time, you can't, after you win those 2 games, you can't come into a Giants game and have a game plan like you had on Sunday. Yes, the Hurts turned it over. Scott fumbled the ball at a key time in the game. So the players take responsibility too. Herbig with his 2 holding calls and key moments of the game. that was a part of it. But it's, I feel like this coaching staff it's a learning year for the coaching staff.
All right, David, talking about coaches, I've been very high on Robert Saleh since he was with the 49ers, just because of the attitude that he brought to that team. And he inherited a Jets team with 2 wins that totally had to be redone. What kind of a role can a guy like that play in the creation of that team? And what has he put forth to them in this first year, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing that attracted Jets fans to Coach Saleh was his intensity, right? That passion that clearly comes through, not just from standing on the podium, but now that we've seen on the sideline, right? We needed that intensity, coming off of the Adam Gase years. He's a breath of fresh air. The thing that I'm seeing though through this point in the year, and if I had to grade Robert Saleh and his coaching staff at this point, right now I'd give him an incomplete. And the reason why is because I just have not yet seen an identity of this football team. The defense doesn't have an identity. The offense doesn't have an identity. And collectively, the team just doesn't know what it is week to week. And part of that, I think, is because Saleh is a first-year head coach, but also because it's not quite his team yet, right? He's still working along with general manager Joe Douglas to pick the pieces that he wants in certain places. And right now he just doesn't have that. He's working with, the ingredients that he was given. So right now it's an incomplete, right? I think there's been signs of progress. I'm not happy with where Zach Wilson is at this point in the year. I think he should be further along, even despite the injuries. But other rookies are really showing up. I mean, the offensive line with Elijah Vera Tucker, which was their other first-round pick this year, he's shown that he's going to be an anchor on the left side of that line. And right now, I think this team doesn't need to make adjustments because its game plans are so flawed that it's really just playing to the flow of the game. It's not so much adjustments as it is just trying to find ways to get guys to make plays because they don't have a whole lot of playmakers on the roster. So Robert Saleh is cooking with empty cupboards, basically.
It reminds me of when Chuck Noll took over the Steelers, I think around 1970, and he told most of the players, he goes, most of you won't be here this year because we're not winning because you're just not good enough. And then he went, of course, with his team, he did build them. But when you look at some of the Jets games this year, you can tell when they've shown up the attitude in the Tennessee game at home, and Mike White got all the credit for the Cincinnati game, but they were opening up big holes for him, and they took over that game. Sometimes they show you that they can do it.
Yeah, and another rookie in that game actually really showed up, and that was Michael Carter, the running back from UNC. I mean, again, sort of another unheralded draft pick that everyone was so focused on Zach Wilson. Michael Carter's been a big asset to this team this year, this offense. As most rookie running backs, he's still struggling with blocking assignments and things like that. But he's shown that he can run the ball, and he's also a great pass catching option out of the backfield. He really showed up in that Cincinnati game.
Bill, now David is talking about the intensity that Robert Saleh has, and for sure he has that. Now, what about Nick Sirianni coming into this game now? A game they were supposed to win against the Giants. They didn't. Now their back is up against the wall. What about his personality? What about his communicating skills? And what about his coaching style? Can he bring across a sense of urgency to the Eagles this week?
He should be able to. I just don't see it in him. He just, every press conference, he starts off with, he takes the blame for everything that's going wrong. On one side, he's also shown the ability to adjust his game plan. They went pass heavy at the beginning of the season, and then all of a sudden Miles Sanders goes down. They get Jordan Howard and Boston Scott, who wasn't even playing at the beginning of the season, and form a very potent 1-2 running combination. And Sanders, we don't know what the status of his injury is. Jalen Hurts is nursing an injured ankle. He's probably going to play this week. So he has to. He's been forced to make adjustments, but he needs to. I need to see from him that commitment to when the pressure's on and the season's on the line, put his foot on the gas and just go full speed ahead, because he just hasn't. He seems a little. He seems to be holding back a little. I don't think we've seen his ability to adjust completely yet. I think that's an area I need to see more of.
Season is on the line, and he doesn't have Joe Flacco anymore. What happens now? Joe Flacco's a Jet. We'll talk more about the NFL in the fourth quarter of Why Eagles Why. Fourth quarter, Why Eagles Why. And you know what? As we look around the NFL, there's really one game we all love to talk about this week: the Patriots and the Bills, probably the two favorites to win the AFC outright. The Patriots are red hot. Remember when they were 2-4? That was a long time ago. Now, David, you saw and followed the Jets while they were playing the Patriots. And the first game of that Patriots resurgence was when they blew out the Jets and scored more than 50 points. There's something special about that team under Bill Belichick.
The Patriots, it almost seems like they took a year off last year, right? I mean, they had a bunch of players that opted out for COVID and things of that nature. And right now you look at where they are, they have the best defense in the NFL in terms of points per game. They have the second best offense in the NFL, fourth best offense in the NFL, points per game. I mean, this team is just doing everything right. And I don't know how you beat that. I had Buffalo as my preseason pick to win the Super Bowl. Right now, they look like they're in a free fall. And New England looks like it's a dynasty again. I mean, they look like, they have for the last 22 years of my miserable existence as a Jets fan.
Well, I think what's different about this team, Bill, as opposed to other Patriots teams, is that the quarterback is not a center of the star as Tom Brady was. Mac Jones was. We talked about him on draft night. He was the steal of the draft, falling all the way down to 15 where the Patriots got him. They were trying to trade up. Nobody would trade with them. Mac Jones fell to them. And there's a different chemistry on this team I'm seeing with Mac Jones kind of fitting into Belichick's system. But what comes to mind for you when you look at how the Patriots are playing?
I mean, I think the defense has been a big part of it too. I mean, I know they had a big game a few weeks ago. This is just a lot of just a good mix of talent. This is one of those situations where the right mix of talent is coming together. You don't look at that roster and say, this guy's a star, that guy's a star. It's a mix of young players that are coming together with a proven coach who knows how to win. And I was high on the Bills at the beginning of the season. I thought they were going to win the AFC East. It was their division to just run away with it. And like David said, they're coming back to earth. So I think this is a statement game for the Patriots to really step up and say, this division is ours, like it has been for years.
Now, I will say, I think there's one bright spot for the Bills here, and that's they're the second best defense in the NFL in terms of points per game. And I think the way that they shuffle in their defensive linemen, I don't know how much you guys watch the Bills. I end up watching quite a bit of all of the AFC East teams. The Bills shuffle in and change out their defensive linemen almost on every play. It's almost 4 fresh guys every time. If they can get pressure on Mac Jones, we have yet to see a game where Mac has been uncomfortable in the pocket. And if you remember, during the Brady years, that was the blueprint for beating the Patriots and Tom Brady. Get him moving his feet, get him uncomfortable in the pocket, and the Patriots are vulnerable. If the Bills can do that against the Patriots on Monday, I think we could be looking at a blowout favoring the Bills. But I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying that is a possibility.
Well, you make a good point about the defense too, because Look, they held Atlanta down. They held Carolina down. They're holding teams in single digits. And I think they are showing a special quality. Bill, it looked like you wanted to jump in with something there about this game. How do you see the matchup of the game overall, Patriots and the Bills?
I mean, I think the Bills should win it at home. You know, Monday Night Football, you're the only game in the spotlight. You got the Bills Mafia as your 12th man. But it's just there's something about the Patriots since that Dallas game. They just seem to be a different team. And I don't think they're going to need the points. I think they're going to win this game outright. And because so something about the Bills over these last few weeks, they seem to be missing something.
It has, David, a sense of a potential, maybe even some type of a postseason summit between these two teams this game.
I absolutely agree. I think, these two, you throw in the Chiefs, the Titans, although, we've kind of seen them fall off a little bit. I mean, I think that's kind of your class of the AFC, and it's really, those guys kind of battling it out. If the Chiefs get healthy, obviously they are the team to beat. But right now it looks like New England and Buffalo are the class of the AFC, and this could definitely be a potential playoff showdown.
All right. We're excited about that game. And, we like the Eagles and the Jets because of its regional interest, and we love the Bills and the Patriots because of its implications on the NFL playoff picture. And we'll check into the overtime right after this. Overtime on Why Eagles Why. A parting thought and maybe an encore edition of Gelman's Gold. Bill, what do you have for us?
I'm looking at the sad state of the number 7 seed in the NFC right now. Washington right now, as a result of being Seattle last night, is holding on to the 7th spot. They have a losing record. There are actually 6 teams, including the Eagles, with 5 wins. Really? We're talking about the potential. If the playoffs started this week, a team with a losing record would be in the playoffs again. Reminds me of the NFC least from the 2020 season. We don't need to rehash that. There's hope.
Or remember that at one point, a team, I think Seattle won a division at 7-9. And then they beat New Orleans in the first round of the playoffs. So, yeah, at the bottom, there's a lot of interest or skepticism. David, what's your parting thought?
Yeah, I'm going to go to the top of the NFC, and that's the Green Bay Packers. And this is more of a PSA for the rest of the NFL and even for the NFL media. Don't get on Aaron Rodgers' bad side. This man is dangerous when he's angry, and if we've seen anything this year, it's that when you poke the bear, it tends to bite. Right now, Aaron Rodgers, to me, is the clear-cut MVP of the NFL. The Packers are easily the best team in the NFL. They don't even have a close second. And I'd hate to be any NFC team who has to go to Lambeau and play this team and an angry Aaron Rodgers.
And that's some excitement that we'll look forward to down the stretch as they try to cement their position. And my thought is the breakout teams of this year, one of them, the Cincinnati Bengals, they stumbled against those Jets and they looked bad for a while, but blowout wins over the Raiders and the Steelers, and they might be back in the hunt. Some friends of ours took some big bets on the Bengals at high odds to win the AFC North at the beginning of the season. So we'll see if the Bengals are back over the course of the rest of the season. Well, thanks for joining us on Why Eagles Why. For David Danzis and for Bill Gelman, this is Dave Bontempo saying we'll see you next time.